I hate this song. I also hate this song. You know what? Just cut to the theme song. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to After the Theme Song with me, Madeline. Guys, there was no episode last week, or no episodes last week because I was tired. This week I really plan to get my life together. Obviously, you can only see me from the chest down, and if you're listening, you can't see me at all. But my room is a mess. My life is in chaos, in shambles. I don't know how to work from home. I do a part-time job, and it's literally a work from home social media job, and I cannot function. I'm someone, I've always said this, I don't know how to do the work from home thing because for me, working or studying needs to be completely separate from play. Like from chilling at home, from doing all of that stuff. So I always struggle to work in any space that I relax in. And I think psychologically you are supposed to separate them anyways. What is happening today? Today, guys, is the day that James and Fahad, other podcasters, are getting cancelled, and I didn't go into it too tough. I won't go into it too tough here, but I said what I had to say on TikTok, and that is when you know what the average UK black boy thinker thinks and acts like, you won't be surprised by anything that they have to say or do. You just know who they are, you can point them out, and you move on. Anyways, so today's episode is going to be about men standard, not a dating episode. I think that's going to be next episode, but today's episode is going to be talking about men, being friends with men, male friendships. And to get us started, I'm just going to read an excerpt from Jujutsu Kaisen. This is all with the underlying tone of me talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. So for anyone who doesn't know, Jujutsu Kaisen is this shonen anime. It's about, how do I explain this for people who haven't seen Jujutsu Kaisen? So there are curses in this world, and curses are bad. And basically, there are people who fight curses. And this extract, that's basically it, fight against curses. And this extract, I'm talking about two people, Geto and Gojo, who used to be on the same side, I would quote unquote the good side of fighting the curses, but then one of them, spoiler, by the way, spoilers, one of them, Geto, decides to join the quote unquote bad side and become a curse user. So long story short, he used to be on the good side, he's not on the bad side anymore. He's now on the bad side, and they used to be really good friends. So I am reading my notes from January 26th, 2024. Mind you, I've watched Jujutsu Kaisen before I wrote this note. This is an additional note. This wasn't the first time I knew about them. This is just my thoughts. At 11:16. So just before midnight, but close enough for it to be almost a bad idea, almost to be a midnight thought. Anyways, note January 2016. Note January 26th, 2024, 11:16 p.m. Notes on Satoru Sugu by me. I think one of the most impactful parts of Jujutsu Kaisen is the relationship we see between Satoru Gojo and Suguru Geto. As someone who loves all things friendship, I will always hold the stance that animated shows have greater depictions of friendship than any other media, while the rest of the world rotates around romance. And I mean this in the boyfriend or girlfriend or partner sense, because I think friendships are romantic, but for the sake of clarity, I will use romance the way most people understand it: girlfriend, boyfriend, or partner. I and many people like me are exposed to more than just one type of love constantly. One cartoon that is great for this is Steven Universe, which may sound basic, but the show is amazing for a reason. Steven Universe revealed so many different forms of love outside of platonic. We see familial, doomed, romantic, platonic, and how each of these are different for the dynamic of the people involved. One thing I think Jujutsu Kaisen, like many animes, are good at showing weighty and hearty friendships between men. And I'm going to add specifically shonens because obviously they are advertised and created towards young men. So for anyone who doesn't know, a shonen anime is animes like Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, those type of animes where the main protagonist is like a young guy or young boy or like a guy, basically, man. And normally it's reared towards that demographic, so younger men. Anyways, my kind of controversial take on why Satoru Sugo is so tragic is because we are not often exposed to this type of friendship between men, so we want it to work so bad. Geto and Gojo show a perfect example of not knowing, wrong timing, and ultimately the circumstances that they were in. Oftentimes, when I think about friendship, I think about that one Bible verse about how a brother was made through adversity. The death of Riko ultimately was that for Geto. So, for people who don't know, someone died in the anime. Spoiler! And I think this was a really pivotal turning point in the relationship between Geto and Gojo. Moving on. They both meant something to each other. I really don't like the narrative that Gojo did not notice his friend change, because I think he did, but by the KFC breakup, it was too late. Pause. I'm gonna explain again. So when Gojo and Geto stop being friends, there's this really famous scene in the anime called the KFC breakup where Gojo has just realized that Geto is joining the other side. And they stand like separate from each other and they are basically screaming at each other and being like, and he's like, why are you doing this? Essentially. And Geto is just like, bro, you don't get it. Like, I have to do this. And that's the KFC breakup. Okay. But by the KFC breakup, it was too late. What does that do to a person when you see someone from beside you slip away and you don't know what to say to keep them? For Gojo, this is extremely imperative for who he becomes because Geto was once his moral compass. Without him, he decided his right and wrong. I think it's fascinating because that's not anything unusual. Oftentimes, we ask our friends what to do in situations to redirect or gauge our moral compasses. But I think the interesting part when it comes to Gojo is the moral compasses for him are a matter of life and death. The beauty of what Geto was to Gojo is, I think, Gojo appreciated that Geto saw outside of his power. His whole life, I imagine Gojo's life was filled with relationships that were either for the betterment of his power, the exploitation of them, or the protection of others. Never ones that facilitated platonic need of care, love, honesty, and above all, companionship. Geto gave him that. He saw the man behind his power and never once was fazed by it. Gojo was able to see a friend in someone who finally sees him outside of his abilities and in a way saw him on par to him. So when Geto asked Gojo that infamous question, I think it was deeply disturbing for Gojo to see that once again he had been put in a position of being viewed by his power and by someone who he knew and believed saw him more than. I think we see that when Geto was talking to Gojo about not turning off his technique, not getting enough sleep, and how hard he was working, complimenting his friend. I wonder how many times Gojo was thanks for his efforts rather than the protection. Ultimately, a focus on him rather than his abilities until he changed. I'm not the best at reading out loud, so hopefully that was not completely unbearable to listen to. But let's get into it. It's the first section of the podcast. Let's get into what I'm writing about. What does all of this mean? Putting aside a lot of the terrible creative mistakes that have been made in Jujutsu Kaisen coming to the point it is at now. I think we're on the last final 5 or 2 chapters, I can't remember. I do think what I say is true. Animation has some of the best depictions of friendship that I have ever had to. Bro, we have a whole My Little Pony friendship is magic. And I don't think I see that as often in mainstream modern media. Because a lot of it is either, how do I describe it, for preteens, it's coming of age friendships. Or a lot of it is the underlying aspect of ultimately whatever romantic storyline is going on. So I do think when things like animated shows, specifically cartoons, because they are geared towards children, we put such massive emphasis on friendship in childhood. And then when we get to adult age, adolescence, it completely disappears. And I think we are in this new wave of people rediscovering how valuable friendship is. On the note of Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm not a boy. I do not know what it's like to be a boy who is friends with a boy. I only know what it's like to be a girl who's friends with a boy. But I think Jujutsu Kaisen is so special because, in that sense, because I do think that is true. Like, we so often see these weighty and hearty and intimate friendships between men, boys, etc. in animes, in shonen specifically. And so many of them be tragic. And I think when you want it to work so bad, it kind of just makes it worse. And I think another interesting point when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen is the way how, I mean, it is assumed that Gojo and Geto were lovers. They liked each other, a little crush, a little kiss, never hurt nobody. But I wonder what if they were just strictly friends? And this brings me on to the point of understanding how we have reshaped what friendship between men looks like. Because back in the day, they would write love letters, basically what we would assume love letters to each other. And I'm not denying, they were roommates and the closeted people. But some of them were purely friends, and they would be writing about how their friends would be the other half of their soul. If you were to write such a thing nowadays, 100% people will assume you're gay. We don't have that same sort of affection that we have anymore for our friends a lot of the time. And I will go way more into it when I do a friendship episode, because I do think a lot of it is what I like to call 22nd century laziness. No one wants to work on their relationships anymore because no one can see the value in them. But anyways, when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen, I think that relationship was so well done. And honestly, watching that anime is such a pain because so many terrible things happen that I think is kind of laziness, especially when you develop your characters at a certain point. You need to kind of push it further. And I think to essentially cut it off too soon is laziness. But that's my opinion. Obviously, I understand the inspirations and all that stuff. But I think one thing that was allowed to take its course is the backstory between Geto and Gojo. It's so classic, yet so different. So yeah, I just think, and obviously this is all assumed, but I do think that the reason why they worked so well was because Geto was able to see just the guy, and the difference between that, everyone else was seeing this power, this immense power that Gojo has. And when Geto asked that infamous question, for everyone who doesn't know, the question is, are you the strongest because you're Satoru Gojo, or are you Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest? And I don't know why people were so confused to hear it half of the time. It makes so much sense. Are you who you are because of your abilities, or do your abilities make you who you are? Kind of paradoxical, oxymoronic, whatever. Because essentially it's a weighing of both. Without the certain abilities you have, would you still be you? Probably not. How much of you is built by what you can do? I remember when I went to a women's church fellowship thing, and they were like, if you, in your bio, usually people are like 22, mum, working at this, content creator, influencer. If you removed all of those things, what would you be? But then again, we are the sum of all the parts. Anyways, so on the topic of on the topic of boys, men being friends with men, what's it like to be a girl to be friends with men? Now, this is interesting. So, if anyone who doesn't know my personal life, I literally have 3 guy friends. But when I left secondary school, I took various vows. I think I wrote them down on a piece of paper, maybe like 5 to 8 vows to myself that I was like, I'm never gonna go back here, because I really wanted to make such a dynamic change in my life coming out of that secondary school. And you can listen to previous episodes of me just kind of talking about the environment I used to be in. One of the things that I put on my vows was I never want to have a guy friend ever again, which is so extra. And obviously these were not aggressive vows. I didn't stick to them aggressively because I only have 3 guy friends. I do have guy friends now, 3 to be specific, of that I can genuinely call friends. But the reason why I wrote these vows was because I think I was definitely one of the girls who was in a very close-knit. It's difficult for me to say the word friendship, but I do think at the time that is what friendship was. So this close-knit relationship with the boys from my school. I don't know whether my camera can actually record past 16 minutes. Every time I get to like the 16-minute mark, it kind of goes a bit red, so I don't know what that means. But anyways, I do think I was one of the few girls that was in this close-knit, tight relationship with the boys, that they felt very comfortable to say certain things around me, and I don't know whether they would say in front of other girls, who knows. I was the first girl to join the boys' Discord. All I can really say to anyone who wants to be friends with boys during that stage in their life, honestly, it is not worth it. I don't see any reason why a teenage girl should be friends with teenage boys in that stage of their life in the way I was. By that, I mean being in the boys' Discord. The only reason I was there was because the boys were really good at physics. I was really bad at physics. And at the time, we were using Skype to learn and do like revision and stuff and homework. But they were like, Skype is long, let's use Discord. We already have a Discord, let's put Madeline in it. I was put in the Discord, and it was already racist there. I've talked about it often, like how the roles were like slave 1, 2, 3. When they realized I was in it, they changed it. They said the N-word constantly, the not safe for work channel, like a lot was there. And that kind of puts in the sense where I was, the spaces I was basically invited to. I did shift the way I thought, because in sixth form I then became really close friends with another set of boys in a different way, and it kind of shifted the way I thought again. I would think things that I would never think now because of the environment I was in. So I'm glad I've grown and learned from that. I had a really close guy friend at the time. I recently saw him on my Instagram feed, actually, because it was his birthday. And we are no longer friends, and we stopped being friends when we went to uni. And there was no particular reason, it just stopped. And in any way, I don't really have a crazy perspective on anything like that. Like, that's just what happens. No one owes anyone friendship. Friendship is a choice. So I don't really feel any adverse feelings towards that. Do I think I was an amazing friend during sixth form secondary school? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think I was so unhinged. It's actually funny to know who I am today, and I think that's a problem that I usually have when it comes to meeting people from my secondary school, specifically also this guy friend. I remember he was walking outside my house and he asked me to go out, and I said no. And the reason I said no is the lead up to him asking me just to like come outside and go for a walk was the fact that I said that I worked in a nursery and it was really fun. And you learn a lot about kids and patients, and he just couldn't believe that I was working in a nursery, almost in a mocking tone. Whether he meant it or not, that's the way I took it. And I just thought, no, we can't do this anymore. Like, I can't do this. I can't be in spaces, and I think I said this before, I can't be in spaces where there's not even the possibility for you to imagine me outside of the context in which you have given me. Allow me the space to update myself. But moving from that, I didn't want to be friends with guys anymore. I didn't think that there was a certain level of respect that I gained from having guy friends. But ultimately, I'm going to talk about why I was able to have guy friends. So one thing I always talk about is how if I was to date a guy, if my boyfriend at the time or whoever I was seeing did not have friends who are women, I would take that as a red flag. Because for me, that shows that he's unable to see women in a way that is not romantic, not platonic. No, whoops, not romantic, not sexual, not motherly, but platonic. That shows me that you actually like women. And I think a problem we have is we think because men are attracted to women, they have to like them. That is not necessarily the case. You can be attracted to women and not like them. And I think friendship is a good way, and friendship with women is a good way to show if you like women. And I know I have a unique perspective on this because a lot of my friends who are women are always like, guys and girls cannot be friends. It will always go down that route. It will always go down that romantic route. Even though men are dogs, but women also are. You are saying that, but I just think not only is it heteronormative to assume that just because someone is attracted or can be attracted to the same gender, they will. It's also just like there's nothing conceptually wrong with the idea of men and women being friends. In practice, a lot of people fumble, just like I fumbled on that sentence. A lot of people fumble, but a lot of people don't. And I think it's important to understand that like just because you could be attracted to someone doesn't mean that you are, and even if you are, doesn't mean that you can't make friendship work. And I guess that's my controversial take. But for me, if men are not able to have good friendships with women, in which I think that they benefit from, I literally do not trust you to like me as a woman, as a person. A lot of people are like, oh, I love the friendship to lover thing. I want my man to be my best friend. How does he even know how to be your best friend if he does not have friends who are women? Like, I just think it is such a red flag, in my opinion. And I just think it means a lot to me for you to be friends with women, considering we are all under this society that is patriarchal and, sexist and misogynistic. We are all under this umbrella. For you to think that, oh, you are the only woman in your only woman ever in your boyfriend's life, that terrifies me in a way that I am not willing to describe. And I know everyone is worried about the female best friend thing. As someone, here's the thing, I can only go off of what I know about myself. As someone, so I was the guy friend I previously mentioned, I was one of his best friends. He started dating a girl and it was absolutely fine. I didn't think much of it. I don't think I acted in crazy ways, but I don't really know. I'm really trying to remember. But something I talk about really often as to why I have this perspective that men and women can be friends is because I was I want to build up the fact that I do believe men and women can be friends, and I don't want what I'm about to say, to be the primary reason as to why you're like, fair enough, because it should be allowed. You can do it. It doesn't have to operate the way it operated for me in secondary school, because I'm obviously going to give examples of the male friendships I have now. But none of my male friends, quite frankly, barely anyone at my school was attracted to black women or were attracted to black women. That was very, very well known, very prominent. Maybe at least not dark-skinned black women, at least. I knew very well that my friends were not attracted to me, let alone the race or group I belong to. And because of that, they were able to see me as not this thing that they have to pursue, because they're not looking at me romantically, they're not looking at me sexually, they're not looking at me in a mother vibe, they just see me, and in a way probably masculinized me. I have been told I'm one of the guys a lot of the time, probably masculinized me, as at the same time sexualizing me. Like, not like, it's like parallel to each other. So was I able to have a relationship with these boys because they were not attracted to me in the slightest? Yes. Do I think that that should be all guy and girl friendships? No. I can see some of my friends and be like, they're an attractive individual, but I'm not necessarily attracted to them. And I get it. Like I said, men are dogs. And I think the problem is men are not inherently taught to navigate that. They are not, I don't think they are taught to find or understand that something can be attractive doesn't mean you have to touch it, and build a relationship outside of those surface level things. So it's interesting because obviously on the downside, I was only friends with these guys because I was not attractive, but I don't really know. That's how I understand it. That's why I've never been in the position of my guy friend falling in love with me. But I do think it's difficult for men to understand intimacy in terms of friendship and not misconstrue that for romance or sexual anything. And I think that is the consequence, the side effect of the society we have built around friendships and understanding intimate friendships between each other and between the sexes. So yeah. Anyways, what changed? What allowed me to have a guy friend? So I would say the first guy friend I made outside of uni was one of my friend's flatmates. And I came out of secondary school absolutely terrified of men, probably still terrified to this day. But I think because I've learned how to put up a crazy great facade, it is very difficult for people to remember or identify that I also have feelings, because I have such strong adverse reactions that I think people don't understand are me literally acting out of fear rather than opinion. Anyways, so so and he was my friend's flatmate, and I remember once we were talking and he was like, were you scared to be friends with me at the start? And I said I was absolutely terrified. I was absolutely terrified to be your friend, because it was just something that I was like, I'm not going back there. I can't go back there because, like I said in the previous episode, it smells too similar. It smells too similar. It's an illusion of what my past could be, and I'm scared. But I'm grateful that we were friends. We don't talk as often, but not because of any reason, just because we're both extremely busy. But like, I would consider him one of my close guy friends. We got on really well. We still get on really well to this day. Like, and it's great. Like, I think what changed is realizing how gentle people can be in their friendship if it actually means something to them, if they actually care about you. And I'm not saying that my previous guy friends didn't care about me. I think they really did. I do think that they really did. But I think the problem that I had was, because it's mixed in this pot of other things from my secondary school, coming out of that space, I was very like, I'm always been an all or nothing person, but I was very all or nothing. I was like, if it talks like my secondary school, walks like my secondary, screams like my secondary school, smells like my secondary school, it's my secondary school by far. Don't go near it, don't touch it, don't even, look in the same direction of it. So I do think my guy friends did care about me. I think that they did care about me. They cared about me a lot. When we stopped being friends, it was really emotionally harrowing for me. And I recently found out that it was actually emotionally harrowing for them. And maybe that was my mistake at the time, to not understand that they also did care. But because they also had a facade of not caring, I didn't know I didn't know that. I couldn't tell. Because I could, look in retrospect, I could understand that they could care about me, but I didn't understand how that's it. Like, I was thinking they care about me, but actually they don't care, which is so strange. It was like the same thing happening at once. Like, I was living two different things. So yeah, my other guy friend, is I'm gonna send him this clip. My other guy friend, his name is Freddie. He's my friend's boyfriend. And controversial or not, I'm someone who doesn't believe in me being the first person to talk to someone's boyfriend. I don't believe I should work to be friends with your boyfriend considering I was already your friend. I think that's a responsibility that a boyfriend has to take if you're going to integrate into someone else's life. That's a principle and something I hold. And you don't have to be with me. You don't have to follow that. I do believe that if your boyfriend makes effort to be my friend, I will probably, I'm not someone who doesn't do that because technically you're in isolation, I'm not. Anyways, so yeah, I think lovely guy, 10 out of 10. And I think the reason why we were able to be friends was because he did try. He tried to be my friend or went out of his way to understand the women in his girlfriend's life, and I just think that's nice, and now we have a good friendship. Another guy friend that I have is someone that I've known for ages, so I feel like that's kind of cheating. It is, in a way, it is kind of cheating because I already knew him for a really long time. But yeah, I just feel like I have very interesting, I think because of the way I have been friends with guys before, it also clouded me as to how men can see you, and 90 whatever percent time how men do see you romantically, sexually, or as a mother, especially being a black woman. 9 times out of 10 is probably how they see you. So when I came into uni and realized that men are seeing me in a romantic sense, in a sexual sense, it was very odd. It was very difficult for me to understand. It is still to this day very difficult for me to identify. And it's put me in situations that I quite frankly have never wanted to be in because I just don't get it. I've just never got it because I hadn't learned that that's how they see you. So it's always been a bit weird. But, you grow, you learn every day. And as I sit here right now, do I think I want more guy friends? Quite frankly, not. I don't really see the purpose in having any more guy friends. But that doesn't mean that if I make a really good guy friend, I'm completely, opposed to the idea. Sorry, I literally lost my mind. It doesn't mean I'm completely opposed to the idea. But I don't really see the need to have any more guy friends. And when it comes to this girlfriend, guy friend thing, I usually just think of it as they are my friend who just so happens. They are my friend who just so happens to be a guy. The gendered part of it comes secondary to me. Because the friend part is what should be first. And I think we focus too much on the gendered aspect, and I understand the trust issues everyone in this space, especially with our generation, is functioning on. But at a certain point, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, girls and guys not being able to be friends is heteronormative and also a problem. It is not the solution. It is the problem. And yeah, that's genuinely an opinion that I think I'll hold until the end of time. Until the end of time. I don't think that will ever change. Because even if I was in a situation where my guy friend does the thing that you're not supposed to do, oh, hey, I have something to tell you, me, or I would just quite frankly stop being their friend and attribute it to the problem of you only being friends with women that you are attracted to, you not understanding the intimacy of friendship and misunderstanding it. I would take it as that rather than, oh, because he's a guy, that's why he did that. I'm not saying it can't be a factor, but I'm not saying it's the only one. Do you know what I mean? It's just the way life is. I'm sure a lot of girls who girl on girl friendships and they're both gay, one of them has probably had an experience like that. That's why I think it's kind of heteronormative, because technically lesbians shouldn't be friends with girls, if we're going to put it that way, because they're attracted to girls. There's an opportunity for them to misunderstand the intimacy, and so many times that they don't. Because men are dogs, yeah, sure, I guess. But I don't think that the fundamental concept is wrong, you can function how you want. This is not me telling you that you should be friends with guys. If you don't want to be friends with guys, you don't have to. But like I said, I don't think girls and guys being friends, not being friends, is the solution. And I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is way deeper than that. It's more widespread. It's I was gonna say girthy. It's more in depth. And I think to put it into these fundamentals, I would be asking myself, if I was to be friends with a guy or to date a guy, does he like women? What examples can I see of him liking women? And friendship is one of the best examples to show what you like, who you let into your inner space. And for me as a woman, what reason do these women in his life, I would never think of this, but what reason do these women in his life give you the heebie-jeebies? Why are they scaring you? Why are they scaring you in this space? Why are you feeling a certain way about your boyfriends or your male guy friends, girlfriend or friend? Like, why do you feel that way? Are you misunderstanding their intimacy for something else? Because friendship, I said it in the beginning, friendship is romantic, but not in that sense. And I think because we get given this one tone of what love or what relationships can look like, everything looks that tone. Every single friendship under the gauze of what we've been giving will look like a romantic relationship, if that's the way you look at it, instead of looking at it as a deep companionship for each other, which can happen between girls and guys without it being disrespectful, without it being sexual, without it being romantic in the sense that you want to date each other, but rather the romance of friendship, which is completely different to me. Ask yourself these questions. Why do you hold the certain values that you do? Because I know why I hold them. I know where I've come from to even allow me to hold this perspective, because I understand that maybe if I had a different relationship with my guy friends, I would think differently. But at the same time, I don't think that is the primary reason as to why I think this way. I just think I can recognize the concept, I can see the potential, and see that the problem isn't really what it is, but rather who everyone is around it. So, to conclude, were Ghetto and Gojo lovers? Or were they just really good friends? I'll see you guys next episode.